Hello everyone, this is Fishpound here. I'd like to provide a quick update on the game CivIdle. As you probably know, the game has been under development for a long time, much longer than I want it to be. Partly because, life gets into the way, but partly because the game has been rewritten from scratch. I have actually not taken a single line of code from Industry Idle. The game, from the engine to the UI to everything, has been rewritten. But fortunately, the game has coming along quite well recently, and all the pieces and bits has come together, and I feel like I can show off the game and a lot of the new features and differences that compared to Industry Idle. First thing, you probably will notice that the game's UI looks very different. And yes, I've adopted this more, retro computing, well, not really retro, Windows 98, sort of the computing UI. And there's even a mode where it actually very faithfully reproduce how it looks like down to the font rendering and the font size. These looks very nice on a kind of old CRT monitor, but on a modern monitor it might be a bit too small. That's why I have this kind of eye protection UI mode, which is a bit easier on the eye, and that's the sort of UI mode I'm going to use today. Apart from the UI, one of the big change or the big addition to the game compared to Industry Idle is tech trees. I love tech tree. It is, as you can see, the game take a lot of inspiration from Civilization, and tech tree is a big part of that game. I wasn't able to actually figure out how to do tech tree nicely in Industry Idle because the game has the tech tree itself is actually quite complex concept, and it was the game when I built Industry Idle, it wasn't part of the plan. And later on, to introduce this to the part of the game is kind of really hard. And for CivIdle, I have the chance to, start from scratch, so I decided to design everything around a tech tree. As you can see, the tech trees are divided into different ages, and the tech tree is very ambitious, it's very large, but not everything has been done. So for now, I have pretty much done everything before the Renaissance, so everything including Middle Age and before are done. All the content and all this balancing are more or less there. On all of these, actually, tech tree items would unlock different stuff. For example, some of them unlock a building you can do, some of them review resources, some of them unlock a wonder, some of them even unlock a feature. For example, like herding would actually unlock building priority settings. It will allow you to set priority for a production. And speaking of production priority, that's the other thing that's kind of changed from Industry Idle. In Industry Idle, there was several kind of a mode of resource transportations, or how do you actually route your resources. The one that has been pretty much mostly used by most of the players are the multiple sources, which are actually introduced very late. It was only introduced in the expansion pack 2, and that was sort of the mode where everybody think it just makes sense to use that one. So I decided just to take that and make it the default for CivIdle. So for CivIdle, you don't have to fiddle with different modes. There will be just multiple sources, which is the mode that was most popular. That was going to be the default. And if you actually look into the buildings, it does have several settings that allows you to adjust production priorities and stockpile. If you place Industry Idle, you'll be familiar with these settings. Those will be unlocked by tech tree. Some of the new technology items would unlock these, so you won't be overwhelmed by these the vast amount of the settings you can do in Industry Idle. And speaking of the logistics system, the kind of in Industry Idle, when you transport something, you burn fuels, and when you produce, you actually need to produce your electricity. In CivIdle, these has been unified into kind of a worker. So the idea is that you build more houses or huts. They're different houses, and you produce workers, and workers are used to transport and produce. For example, if I choose a building here, you can see that there are 4 workers currently transporting resources to this building, and there are about 2 workers building or producing in this building. And when you see this kind of a warning and a kind of a yellow warning and kind of a red highlight, meaning that this resources is kind of insufficient, meaning that we probably need to build more houses so that we have enough workers for production. And another big change compared to IndustriIDLE is that there's no more magical cash resources. In IndustriIDLE, there's this cash where you can, you convert all your resources to cash, and then you can use it to upgrade buildings, and you can use it to do whatever. The cash has been getting rid of. So upgrading buildings instead will take other resources. For example, like you can see, if you hover over onto the upgrade kind of level, you can see that it tells you upgrade to level 5, which takes about 178 stone and 178 wood. And these has been completely redesigned. And also the local market, which is called, I think, Trade Center. The market, first of all, you can build several markets, and second, they don't convert things to cash anymore, but instead you can trade the resources to other resources. And for every 2 hours, you get a new set of deals in a way. One thing compared to IndustriIDLE, which is quite different, is that the price of IndustriIDLE can vary a lot. You can have something that worth like 5k, and in the next market cycle, which is every 2 hours or every 1 hour in Hong Kong, it will be like maybe 5 million. But this won't happen in CivIdle. Here, there's still some variation when it comes to the price, but it will vary in a more kind of a reasonable or like a small range. Will probably be less than 50%, meaning that when you build up your kind of a production, your whole valuation is more in line with your production scale rather than being subject to the market forces. And this is sort of a decision that I have to balance out, because a lot of people like the randomness in IndustriIDLE, but it does make the game a bit harder to balance and harder to know what's going on. And also makes it sometimes a bit frustrating that your resources are like you're building an empire, you're producing a lot of stuff, but then because the market's kind of bad and you're stuck with it. So this will be much less of an issue in CivIdle. Another big change of CivIdle compared to IndustriIDLE is the player trade. The player trade now has been completely rewritten. I hope that I can show some of the differences compared to IndustriIDLE. First of all, it's locked by a tech item, so you'd actually need to unlock it in your tech tree, which is, I think, land trade. So after you unlock land trade, you can build caravansaries. In IndustriIDLE, you can only have like one trade center, which is this pre-placed building on your map. Now you can build several caravansaries. They act as kind of an outpost for player trade. And once you go to the caravansaries, it asks you to actually, it tells you have to select a tile on the trade map. Now you might click here, this is the trade map. There are a lot of tiles that's available for claim, and each player will actually claim one of the tile. For example, I can claim a tile here, and then I can even set a tariff, which we'll get to later. And after claiming a tile, I can trade with other players. In IndustriIDLE, when you trade with other players, the resources are just magically deducted from your production. And this is no longer the case in IndustriIDLE. Here you actually need to transport your resources to caravansaries before you can trade them. If you go back to the city, and you can see that the way to do this is through this resource transport. Let's say that go to trade. Let's say we want to trade with Constantine. And Constantine wants wood. So the way we get wood is basically to change the kind of a resource transport settings here. And this, for example, I can set that I want to transport 5 wood per second and cap it to 500 wood. And this would actually transport the wood. Now, as you can see, I already reached the cap, so it's not transporting anymore. So after I get the wood here, I could actually trade with Constantine. So if I go back to the trade screen and click Constantine, I can actually fill the order. And if I click fill, and you can actually see, maybe this is not a good way to see it, you can actually see that the system actually planned a route. Now, although this route is a bit weird, but essentially if you trade between a player, you have to find a kind of a route between them. And for example, here I go across Nero's tile, which charge 0.1% of tariff, which means that I have to actually pay the tariff, the 0.1% of my trade to him. The same goes the other way around. For example, I can set my tariff rate to 0.1%, and all the trade that go through my tile has to pay that tariff to me, which is free money. So that's why choosing kind of a good location matters on the trade map. And this is kind of like a real-time player map. So it's like it's everybody, all the world who play this game would actually share this map. So here I can select how much I want to field. For example, I only have 500 wood, so let's field about maybe 400 something, and then I can field the order, field the trade. And that's sort of the gist of the player trade. It has a lot of like the basic premise is the same. You trade resources with other players, but with the introduction of the kind of player trade map and all the tariff and all this stuff, it becomes quite kind of an in-depth thing you can actually do. So I'm really excited that, for example, I can set my trade tariff to some other percentage. It is kind of like a balance as well, like right, the highest tariff you set, the more money you can get from each trade. But the thing is, let's say when you trade with someone, the system will always calculate the cheapest route. For example, if I want to trade with, let's say, Trajan, it actually says, well, actually, the cheapest one is go to Caligula, because Caligula only charge 0.5%. But Justinian, for example, will charge 1%. So it will find the route that actually has the lowest tariff rate. So if you set your tariff rate too high, then not a lot of trade will go through you, even though you will get a lot of money from each trade. So this kind of a dynamic, it's something that I believe will make the game kind of more fun when it comes to player trade. Instead of just trading, you actually have to take in several factors into considerations. And the last thing I want to talk about is the current status of the game. As you can see, the game has most of the core pieces of the game has came together. I'm currently doing kind of a last round of testing myself, just to get rid of all the nasty bugs and all the soft logs and all the stuff that's obviously wrong. And after that, I would do a little bit of balancing as well, just to make sure the balancing is not completely broken. It probably will still be broken when I open it up for a kind of a bigger testing. And after that, I plan to open up the second round of like an internal testing. I'll give out some of the keys so that you can actually try the game and play it. I'll turn on the server, make sure that all the multiplayer function works, and all the testing would happen. I would assume that testing would happen for maybe a few weeks, and I'm not sure that whether that I need to wipe the data after the testing. Most likely I do, depending on how broke it is. So I probably would make warnings as this data will be wiped after the play test. So don't panic. And that's pretty much about the update. And I plan to continue to offer my weekly update on the Discord channel, just to give a bit more visibility. I can see that a lot of people are sort of expressed that they haven't heard much about the game, and they were a little bit worrying on what's the situation. But rest assured, everything is still moving along. It's a bit slower, but things are picking up steam at the moment, and I'm quite excited to show the game and bring this to the next playtest.